welcome to Deep Soul Divers Astrology. I'm Carmen Turner-Schott, and I'm your host. And I'm excited today. We're right in Mercury retrograde, lots of communication and issues going on, technology, people feeling a little bit maybe blocked energy-wise, but it's going to be over soon on January 1st. We'll feel a relief. And I'm really excited today to have a friend and someone that I met who has an amazing spiritual journey and a podcast out there that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome him to the show. Trey Downs, welcome. We'll bring you in. How are you?
Good, Carmen. Thank you for taking the time and having me on. Thank you.
Yes. So, we got a lot of people listening, and we're not just astrology show. We really focus on anything that's spiritual. And I really, when I was on your show this past year, I really felt like we connected and had some things in common, even our birth charts, both Aries moons, both got some Taurus energy, and just both like to teach and learn and do this spiritual business. So I'd love to hear more about how you got on this journey of what you're doing. Where were you before and what led you to this path?
I was just thinking about this like the other day, speaking with a good friend of mine. We were kind of talking about it because his story kind of intertwines with mine in a way that is very unique. And I give all the credit to his little daughter, right? So and through a tragedy really kind of launched me into spirituality, like doing the show geared towards spirituality. I had a good friend. I was doing the podcast. It was more like business oriented towards entrepreneurship and blue collar workers and just kind of, you know, being motivational for them and giving them inspiration to start their own businesses. And my friend from work, his daughter ended up getting sick. She was 7 years old. She had some type of virus, which progressed into some type of brain swelling,
Oh,
and
no.
she eventually passed away.
Oh,
Yeah. So through that tragedy, I go to the funeral, support him through that. And it was just like one of the, I don't know. I don't wish that upon anyone really. And
yeah,
being a father of three, that really impacted me. And it really, um, I mean, I felt it. I mean, it hit me hard. And I mean,
yeah,
it still kind of hits me a little bit, but
yeah.
it's been 5 years now.
Wow.
And right after that happened, like I started seeing my friend, like his grieving process was different. Like I know if it was me, I would have been in a ditch somewhere, like not really been able to um, be in society and
Hmm.
live my life. Really, I mean, I think I don't know where I would be, but he was. What surprised me was how well he was dealing with it.
Hmm.
And what I found out later was that he found an author by the name of Bob Olson who does investigation and mediumship.
Oh,
And I started reading his books and I started watching his show and uh, my keyboard's acting up right now.
that's okay.
Um, so I started listening to his content and I really wasn't into that realm. I was a Catholic, but I wasn't into spirituality in the way that I am today. It was a couple of stories that he had highlighted on his show that I started like it piqued my curiosity. It was about people that were actually connecting with the other side and receiving validation from that and evidence from that. I was blown away by it. And that led me down different pathways into near death experiences and Raymond Moody's literature and
Right.
some of his books. And then it just progressed from there and it just started accelerating. And then I started getting more guests geared towards spirituality, like Paul Selig and channelers. And I can't explain it, but through her death, like it really opened me up to being more spiritual and questioning what's on the other side, what happens to us. Like, how are these people able to connect with our past loved ones and bring back evidence of a communication of something that they would have
Yeah.
no, um, no previous knowledge of, right? Like
Yeah.
confirming stories that have happened between the relatives that the medium has no way of knowing
Yeah.
that happened. So it was through this little girl's death that really. projected me onto this pathway. And I feel like, she he tells me like he has like a yearly connection with this medium that lives locally close to him, and and she says that Addison was an old soul, and even though she was only here for a short time,
Sure.
she was very impactful on a lot of people's lives, right? And I feel like I'm very impacted by that, and through my show I can impact others. So through her short
Mhm.
life here, I'm able to create something and continue her legacy on and help others spiritually grow and become more aware and conscious of like what it is we're really here and what we're here to do.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great story. It's from sadness, there's so much healing, that you've been able to bring people through your show. And your show's called the Your Superior Self podcast. Can you tell us kind of how you named that show and just some insight about it, what you've been learning on the way? You've interviewed amazing people. I mean, I've been watching your channel on YouTube. Everybody needs to follow him, subscribe. He's got a wonderful guest on there that are just amazing perspectives on past lives, UFOs, other realms, spiritual abilities. It's just amazing. So, yeah, I'm wondering how you came up with the name, and then, what are some of the, you know, your most interesting topics that you like? Like, what are you really resonating with right now?
Well, Your Superior Self is named after the Ernest Hemingway quote. Like I was really big into that when I first started self-development, reading and
Mhm.
Ernest Hemingway, like his material, which is so fascinating because like his ability to describe a scene back in the day, which is phenomenal. I mean, very detail oriented, and you felt like he was taking you there to wherever he was. So he has a quote. I think it is true nobility is not being superior to your former man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. And
Oh,
so like that really hit me. And I was like, you know
yeah,
what? Let's call it your superior self, like being your superior self.
yeah,
Little did I know, right? Like in the spirituality realm, there's a higher self. Like
yeah,
I didn't
right,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah,
There is
no,
a superior self somewhere. Like
yes,
people call it a higher self,
yeah,
but be your superior self. And what does that mean? I mean, you don't even have to be spiritual to try to be your superior self, whether that's, you're trying to get better from yesterday, right? Or being the best version of yourself. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily spiritual, but I take it in that context of spirituality where I try to connect with my higher self, and
mhm,
I try to help others do that as well or become conscious to that.
yeah. I was looking, when I looked at your chart for the first time, you had a lot of that 12th house energy, which in astrology, the 12th house is all about a spiritual path, connecting with the higher power, your higher self, different levels of consciousness. So it really aligns with, your soul mission. You've already pursued these kind of topics and learned them. And now you're kind of bringing it to a more of a practical, um, basic level, teaching it, talking to people, communicating all of these things that you've already kind of lived, in the past when I'm looking at your chart. And I got a lot of 12th house people that listen in from my 12th house astrology group. So, your South Node is in the 12th house. So I hear that from a lot of people with that placement that they were just drawn to these things. It's like these events in their life triggered and led them to where they are right now, which is your soul mission. You're meant to be doing this stuff.
Hmm.
And, you
I hope
know,
so. I love it.
yeah, yeah, you're so good at it. And I guess like what has been a topic maybe that you're intrigued by, that like now that you don't really know why it works, but it works, and that you're getting more evidence from interviewing people and hearing their
Hmm.
stories and
I think UFO stuff right now because I don't know if it's necessarily UFOs, right? Like from other planets. I don't know. Like I've been reading a lot of Jacques Vallée material,
okay.
and he's so fascinating. For those
What's
that,
he say? What's he say about
well,
it?
I'm trying. Like I'm just at the very beginning of reading his stuff. He doesn't necessarily think that it's he doesn't assume anything. He just kind of lets the evidence speak for itself.
Sure.
But I feel like he's under the impression that this isn't necessarily beings from outer space, like that it is some type of consciousness
Oh,
that is trying to evolve, right? Like because throughout time, we've had these stories and myths of fairies and uh, mystical experiences that happen like in Ireland and over in Europe and all throughout the world,
sure.
right? That people cannot explain, right? So I feel like UFOs are kind of similar to that, where you see like an influx of UFO stories like 1946,
Yeah,
1947 or whatever, right?
sure.
When that started, when that was like the kind of the shift in society like towards science fiction.
Hmm.
And you start seeing more and more of UFO stories and experiences, but there's also weird experiences that people can't explain, like just rando, like I don't like I mean even like crop circles, like things like that. I
Yeah,
mean, but he compares like crop circles. There's examples of crop circles and like fairy stories, like back in the day, like in the 1500s in
yeah,
England. So like, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily UFOs. I don't know, but I do believe that there is something going on at a higher level, like whether you want to call that what Tom Campbell calls a larger consciousness system, which is trying to evolve itself, and maybe
mhm,
people are experiencing these experiences just to wake them up and say, "Hey, look, there's something more that is going on." I
sure.
mean, I mean, there is the Fermi paradox, which means there's a high probability that we live in a solar system or universe where there are different planets that can house extraterrestrial life.
Sure.
And why they would come here, I don't know. But I mean,
Yeah.
my thought is, and this is what Jacques says, he's like, if they have this technology to come here, like, why would they crash? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, true.
they could travel all these light years to get here, and
Right.
then they crash in
Right.
somebody's backyard. Like
Yeah.
maybe
Especially
it's
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but everybody has a different experience. So like who's to say that they're wrong? But like maybe
Sure.
it is like this consciousness trying to make us evolve and it's doing it by saying, "Hey, look, I'm going to crash land a UFO in the back of you in the backyard." However, you know, it's just to wake you up. It's to kind of question everything what's going on. And I
True.
don't know. With
Uh,
everything in psychology, as you know, and your
yeah.
background is in psychology, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that program the unconscious or subconscious.
Sure.
So
Sure.
like I don't know, like throughout the ages, like the angel stories, the demon stories, all of that, like is it really that or is it, you know, subconscious programming from the times that the zeitgeist that's been going on throughout history, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right with the awakening that people that experience these things, it's to wake them up. I think, that's what kind of got me studying astrology on my path was when I was 16, I saw that glowing orb in my doorway and no one could explain any what it was. And that did change my life. And in that same year, I had lost my friend, was accidentally shot and killed when I was 16 and it was a horrible accident. But those two things happened that same year and it got me on the astrology path. So, and then just seeing these things, I think makes you have to open up your mind because, if you're really stuck in a certain belief system, like it's wrong to think about these things, it's wrong to study, there's a lot of guilt, I think, with religion that kind of makes us feel like these things are bad. And I had to get over that. I struggled with that for a long time, to say, you know what? No, these things are true and they resonate with me and I feel like I'm helping people. But I think everyone has their journey, through those lessons. But seeing orbs, seeing UFOs, I've met so many people that have had these experiences and it really did open up their mind. That's what it
Hmm.
did.
Hmm. I mean, even
Yeah.
AI, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, AI, like everyone's trying to demonize this thing. Like, what if, like, I think it's a non-human intelligence. I think we're building the body right now for AI. And I think it's going to be a blessing and a curse at some point. People are afraid of it, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to see like pure history, like it's going to, it's going to cut through all the bull crap, right? And it's really going to bring forth all the facts that ever happened, right? And
Mhm.
get rid of a lot of the add-on and the takeaways that people have done to history and the stories of that, right? And say, hey, look, it's going to produce all the truth and it can help us progress as consciousness. I think that's the goal here, right? Like why
Yeah.
we're here is to evolve as a conscious being. And everything else is just a story essentially, and people's subjective truths. And who's to
Sure.
say that your truth is better than mine? Like, it's just my experience. And
Sure.
even though I haven't experienced any UFOs, but I have experienced phenomena that I can't explain. Like, I'm a big runner.
Yeah.
I like to run in the mornings, and that's the time that I go in meditation and pray to the universe about signs and, what is my mission here? Like, what is it I'm here to do? Like, point me in the right direction. Like, I'm here. And then I'll see things in the sky that I can't explain, right? Like, some people could say, oh, well, that's a satellite or something, right? Or a shooting star or whatever. But like, what are the chances of the probabilities of that happening right when I ask, right? Show me a
It,
sign, boom, and it happens. Like, okay, they can say whatever they want to say, but that's my truth is that I'm connecting with something higher,
mhm.
or maybe I'm connecting with my higher self or my superior self. And that's the answer that it's giving me to keep pushing me in a direction that I need to go to help
Sure.
me evolve. And as I evolve, I help others evolve.
Yeah. I like that. I think you're right. It's, we could be experiencing these things as really our higher self. Um, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
There's-
just think about all the redactions
Yeah.
that's happened, like with just AI, right? People are just like, "Oh, AI is going to take over, and they're going to use the computers against us." And I'm like, "All right, maybe, right? I don't know." But all the redaction that has happened
Yeah.
throughout the history, like how many Bibles are there? There's like, I don't know. There's so many versions of the Bible out
No,
there, and all
I
these
know.
ancient texts. Like, what if it can go back and like piece all the puzzles together, and we come out and say, "Hey, look, this is what really happened," right? So, I mean, I think the tool that it's going to be able to be for people and present knowledge in a different way and not be tainted by human
Sure.
um, redaction is going to be a key piece in our evolution.
Yeah, I think this is gonna take off, and a lot of things are gonna happen this next year, because we have the planet Pluto moving into Aquarius. So, and it's gonna be like a 20-year cycle of change. And it's all about technology. I mean, Aquarius is AI, innovation, science, space travel, all this stuff. And I think more and more things are going to happen, especially this coming January 2024, when we start moving into that Aquarian energy. And I think it's interesting. Like, it's really hard for some people, I think, to get out of their mindset. I feel like I'm pretty open-minded, but I had for work, we had to get some training on it was for victim advocates, people working with survivors, or people that are victims of sexual assault, harassment, things like that. And there was a whole class about AI, and like these rooms, like these virtual reality rooms, and people that are on these apps, and they're having, they're finding boyfriend, girlfriend, on apps, and they're like AI. They're, they look like people. They text them, check on them, tell them they love them. Like it's like the movie Her.
Mm.
You see that movie? And where he had this computerized girlfriend. So it's kind of like we're in that. Like this is real. Like I'm getting trained for work for these things. People are getting harassed in virtual reality rooms. I mean, this is why we got training. How do you train kids, to be safe in the virtual realm, all these things. And it kind of makes my head hurt a little bit, because I'm like, whoa, like you have to completely change your mindset about some of these things, and how you train, how you think, how you teach kids, how it's really, I think people that are older, I think different generations are having a harder time with some of this stuff, changing and allowing it to happen, because it's here. I mean, we're in it, like you said. And I think I know a lot of people, I've only heard a lot of negative about it. But I think you're right. There's a lot of positive too.
Hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure. I think you always have to. I mean, let's
yeah,
be serious here. Like, we should be protecting our kids right now,
sure.
not
No,
from online stuff. And
I
even,
know.
10 years ago, we should have been doing that too, because just they're
I
so
know.
easily influenced. Like, their brain is so malleable that, I mean, even watching Disney stuff, right? Like, I'm a big Disney fan, but we were
Oh
just
yeah.
talking about the cruise that I just went on, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like you still got to be careful about what they take in, right? Because Disney picture Disney portrays a certain archetype, right?
Yeah.
Princess, prince, living happily ever after, right? What kind of influence does that play into your kid's life, right? When
I
they
know.
grow up and they can't find a husband or a wife, or they don't, it's just so much there, right? Like you just have to be very careful of and what you put in front of them, because like they portray these perfect relationships, and they're
Hmm.
kind of like, life isn't perfect like that. That this is a
No.
movie, but they don't
Yeah.
understand that at that
It's
age, right? They're
fairy
looking,
tale. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, well, why is this princess married and living happily ever after in a castle? Like I want that, and it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, well, life is a little different, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, we should be very concerned with what they're consuming now. Just it's so
Oh,
their brain is so malleable, and the subconscious is easily programmed, and we're only conscious of a part of what's happening behind the scenes, like in our unconscious. Like you think you're conscious of the unconscious, like that is just a part of the unconscious. Like there are things happening in your life that are a result from your unconscious that you're totally not even conscious of. Like, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like patterns, like subliminal messages too. Like it reminds me when I picked my daughter up from preschool, she was like 4, and she said, Mommy, what?" She asked me, "What's a drag queen?" And I thought, where did she hear that?" I said, "Oh, honey," I said, "Where did you hear that from?" She said, "The Bee Movie." The Bee Movie with, Seinfeld, that
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the movie
Jerry
about that
Seinfeld.
bee. Yeah, yeah, and the bees, and everything. I said She said, "In the movie, mommy, there was a." I had watched that movie with her a ton of times. I never caught that joke comment. There was a picture in the beehive that she saw, but that's her, like, she's really detail focused, so she
Sure.
noticed that as a kid, and to ask me, so I had to explain to her at 4 years old what that meant. I mean, she already knew and asked me. So, and she would ask me all kinds of things like about where do I go when I die, what happens
Hmm.
to me, all these kind of deep things. And you're looking at them, like, they act like, she seemed older to me than she really was. And so I kind of treated her that way, which now she's 19 and we talk about that. She's like, "I wasn't raised like a normal person." This is what she tells me. She's like, "You're kind of a weird mom."
Well,
I was
weird in
believing
a
in
good way, right?
astrology. Yeah. She's like, "You told me my soul mission when I was 6, or whatever." And so we laugh. But yeah, it's kids are so sensitive to
Well,
that.
just think about that too, right? Like, so even like with the Shrek movies growing up, that was Shrek for me, right? And all
Oh
of the
yeah.
jokes that they had, like not saying they weren't funny, they were funny, right? But the unconscious programming that it's doing, right? And that's why I think I was just speaking to a guy um, recently on the show about dreams, right? And he's like, well, up to a certain point, I want to say like maybe the 80s, 90s, whatever. So a lot of dreams now are more about vampires and zombies. Why is that? It's the movies that we're watching, right?
True.
That's where I think the UFOs and stuff, like you're letting things seep in unconsciously and then projecting it out into your reality. So
Yeah.
why don't you hear more about UFOs in the 1800s or whatever? Maybe there are. I don't know. Jacques Vallée has done a lot of research, and I'm reading a book right now of
Yeah.
his called Dimensions that he talks about a
Yeah.
lot of absurd cases that have happened throughout time. And we're
Yeah.
not talking about just UFOs, but I mean, yes, orbs. Like to your point earlier in our conversation about that's what really changed you, an orb in your doorway, where there's a lot of orbs throughout history
Yeah.
dealing with women that could be classified as Mother Mary or the Holy Mother or whatever.
Sure.
But is that really the Holy Mother, or is that our unconscious projecting into this reality, right? And that's what I'm fascinated with. It's like, what is the power behind our consciousness? What can
Yeah.
we project into our reality? If we're projecting things unconsciously, what can we project consciously? And how can we change our reality? How can we intentionally change our reality? How can we intentionally manifest things? How
Yes.
can we go after our desires and create them in this reality? If it's so easy for us to unconsciously produce things,
Yeah.
how hard can it be for us to consciously produce things? That's what I'm really fascinated with.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I read The Secret and the movie, and it is true. These laws, there's universal laws. There's a book that I got in metaphysics school when I was taking classes years ago, and it was called Your Life, Why It Is the Way It Is, and What You Can Do About It. And it has all the universal spiritual laws, believing and knowing. visualization, all these things, and it works. I mean, I think what it is I know I get lazy,
Mhm.
and and it's like I know these things, but it's like applying them. Like I took this 3 years in school of metaphysics to learn all this stuff about the laws of the universe and meditation, how to manifest what you want, believing and knowing that you can manifest things. And they have these exercises we were doing, stuff like that. And it's, you got to apply this stuff to see it work. Like I would love to, I would study it and read it and have it in my mind, but then I wouldn't implement it. And so I always try to tell people, you got to implement these things and try it out, and you have to be consistent with it too. So I'm guilty of not being consistent. Like, it's my go-to when I'm struggling. Like, oh, I know this stuff works, so, but I need to do it every day. And so I'm still working on that to do it every day. And there was this one activity they gave us. It's like you write a list of 10 things you're thankful for, and it's all things you don't have. Now, it doesn't have to be material things. It can be emotional things, spiritual things. And I remember doing this, probably I was maybe 23 when I did it. And you write it all down, and then you do your, it's like goals, but then you get your top 10. Number one is most important to you that you really want. Is it good health? Is it happiness? Whatever it is. If you want a new car, they say put a few material things on there so when it manifests, it's like noticeable. And, like in The Secret, where the kid wanted the bike, and then he got the bike. So I put all of it down, and you put it under your pillow before you go to bed. You read it as if you have these things. So you're like, 10 things I'm thankful for. It's not things you don't have. You're already believing and knowing that you're going to have them. And so I did this, and you do it every night, and I practiced this whole thing, and things start happening that were on my list. And
Really?
I'm like, oh yeah, it was so cool. And I remember at the time, my grandfather, out of the blue, he asked me to come see him. I went over there, and he's like, "Well, I got something for you." And he had got me a new car, and it wasn't brand new, but it was newer than the one I had, which was pretty bad.
Newer than the hoopty I got. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a Chevy Silver Lumina. I will never forget, 4 door. And he got it for me. I'm like, Grandpa, why did you give this for me now? I go, this is so weird. I said, I had this on my list, and I never told him about the list. And that happened. And then something else. Oh, something weird. Something happened. I ended up getting this job. I was trying to find, manifest a job that I enjoyed at the time, working with teens, back in the day. And the whole thing happened. And it's just all these things. And so I know it works. And I'm always, as a counselor and coach, and a therapist, we're really good at giving other people advice, but not taking our own, and we're guilty of that. And so I try to take my own advice, and that's a challenge for me sometimes. So, I'm learning to do that. Like, I'm always telling people about Mercury retrograde, and I'm always telling people, don't start anything new. Just, unwind, detach, relax, wait till it's over before you start trying to accomplish things again. And all I've been trying to do since it went retrograde is to try to start writing this book that I got a contract on, try to do all these things that I'm blocked. It's like I'm burned out. I just can't do it. And then I realized yesterday, I need to take my own advice. I need to
Mhm.
wait till Mercury is not retrograde, like I tell everybody else, and not beat myself up, right? And so go with the energy, that's affecting you, and it'll pass. That's why I like astrology, because it's energy. And so it helps me kind of practically put I don't know, an image or a situation. It makes it real, and associate it with the energy of the moon, the cycles of the moon, what's going on with the planets, how they're affecting you in your birth chart. I just see it's so accurate. And so I believe in it so much. And I know it's helped me, and it's helped other people. So that's kind of the tool I use, that I've always loved. And I've studied other things. I'm a Reiki master. I've done energy healing, all this stuff, but I always come back to astrology because to me it's a science, but it's also energy, just like everything else is. You
Sure.
know,
I feel like the entire year has been retrograde.
I know. I remember when you texted me. It was a couple months ago. October was a really tough month. I think is when the energy was real heavy, and there was a lot, I think, of Scorpio stuff going on, Scorpio energy, and a lot of challenging retrogrades. Now we're getting out of these retrogrades now. Whew, I can already feel relief. So it's getting better, and it's only going to get better in January. We're going to feel a lot better. I think the first of the year, I think people notice energy wise, they'll be feeling really different, and it'll be a good time to embrace change, and all of these exciting technological things like AI and all this stuff is really going to kick off this next year. I think we're going to see a lot of cool stuff happening. And I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, I would love to know, what the government really knows about UFOs. I know they release some things, and it's pretty crazy though if you think about it.
It is
And
crazy. Like, have you, and I don't mean to cut you off.
no,
Have you ever
yeah,
read any of, or listened to Dr. Stephen Greer stuff?
no, no. Tell us what's his stuff. I need to
So,
look him.
I mean, he has a couple of books out, and I think a documentary, just the concept that the government has like reverse engineered UFOs and essentially does some crazy things with those, right? And so
Uh-huh.
he has this theory where I'm just picking this number up. Um, I think it's like 80 or 90% of the UFO contacts or UFO sightings are actually like vehicles or craft that the UFO, I mean, the government has reverse engineered. So like, I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that's interesting because that means that there's a huge cover up. But then it's
Oh,
also like, um, here's this, and I'm not doubting what he's saying, and there may
I
be some
know.
truth to it,
It's
but it's like,
different.
would the government really let this guy live and talk about it? Like, I feel like, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, he's got a lot of people supporting him, and he's got
Yeah.
a lot of literature
Yeah.
out there, making this case. But I'm like, well, if they've taken out a lot of different inventors throughout the years that have produced like alternate energy sources,
Uh-huh.
because they want to keep creating money and be the most powerful entities in the world. Like, why would they let this guy keep talking about what they're doing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I
But
think,
there's a couple guys out there that are talking about this right now. There's a guy on Joe Rogan, who's a whistleblower. I can't remember his name right now. But he is claiming that he was a part of a program similar to that where they have knowledge of this technology that the government is using that is UFO-like or reverse engineered technology that they're using for whatever purposes. And some of it's not really good either. But it's that stuff is interesting to me.
it is interesting because, I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense because, you know, if Roswell happened, which I do believe it did, I've read a lot of documentaries, so they probably, if they got a hold of the technology, very well, they could have did a lot of things with it. I mean, there's a lot of in secret, and I think also I'm glad you brought this up because I was thinking about this the other day that it's like in the past, like they never would have this stuff on the news. Like it was so secret squirrel. And now it's kind of like I feel like they want to desensitize people
Yeah.
to this because it's
I
on the
think
news.
they're getting ready because they've created laws for whistleblowers to come out in these
Yeah,
organizations to say,
yeah,
hey, look, the government's work, I worked on this thing throughout the
sure.
government and this is what happened. This is what I'm seeing. But I think they're getting ready. I think they're doing this for a couple of reasons.
Mhm.
For one, maybe it'd be a scapegoat or something like that, where they're
Yeah,
saying, oh, we didn't have knowledge, right? The president of the United States doesn't have this top clearance. I'm like,
sure.
how does he not have clearance? He's
Yeah.
the head of the country, man. Like
Yeah.
there's like top secret and there's cosmic secret. And I guess this is cosmic secret to where only a select people of government know about these programs. And it's like, I
Yeah,
think it's like, all right, they're going to say, oh, well, it's a scapegoat to saying, oh, well, we didn't know about that. So we're just
yeah,
bringing this out now. Don't blame us. We've created
yeah,
these
yeah.
anti-gravity vessels that we're using to traffic individuals, you know what I mean, and run
It,
drugs. But
it's crazy.
it is crazy. It just makes you think about like, what's going
Well,
on?
I mean, look at if you think something happened because I hear stories my grandfather tells me, he was tipping out houses. Okay. My grandfather's like 80 something right now. I'm like, okay, they were living and they had outhouses. Okay. And now look at where we are. Like in such a
Yeah.
short time. I mean, everything just kind of exploded technology wise, I mean, growing up, it's so different for me because you're around my brother's age. I think I'm maybe, maybe when I 7 years old, 6 years old or something. But when I was growing up, we had and no technology. We had TV, but I never watched TV. I was out at the creek in the woods, climbing trees, playing basketball. Like I was never home. And then as our kids are growing up on devices. I mean,
Mhm.
my niece and nephews, they're always on the iPad watching shows, doing all this. It's like a totally different world
Sure.
than we were growing up. I mean, we like to me that was normal. But then I look at like now and I'm like, but we all just adapted to it. Like we're just doing it. Like we're so attached to the phone and all this stuff. And I've always been a little worried. Like I'm not a prepper, but I used to be into the conspiracy theories and stuff, and I had to stop because it gets into the negative and I'm trying to be positive, but I'm like, I need to grow my own food. I need to be, have enough to survive in my basement. I have that part of me that comes out when I hear these things or see these movies, and
The ego pops in,
my
right? But if
ego.
you think about it, though, right? I mean, look, I don't want to experience death, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if I'm really believing what I'm preaching here about that we are a spiritual entity, a consciousness, that we are not the body, that, hey,
Yeah.
look, if, something happens and it's out of my control, like it is what it is, right? Like,
Mhm.
and that I'll continue past this body or past this persona, this spiritual being of consciousness that will, that is infinite, right? Or I shouldn't say infinite. Maybe I'm infinite. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm infinite right now, but like if I am eternal, if I am never non-dying, then it this is a huge lesson. Let's not repeat this in our next life. Let's try to be better. But to your point, I mean, technology has exponentially increased and developed and gotten better. I mean, I had three channels growing up. Now my kids have a subscription to like all the major movie apps, and they can watch whatever they want whenever they want. But
I
that's
know,
all.
right?
But it's also a negative because it's like they
I
they
know.
lose connection with Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, and
Yeah, it is.
there is a difference, like, and it sometimes it does take for me, like, I love the beach. I love the ocean. I love being close to that energy. And what's sad sometimes is that it takes me having to go there to shake me out of this um, pattern that I'm in, that I'm always connected. And that's when I can really fully be in the moment and like present and
Yeah,
grounded and feel an energy that is outside of myself. That, if you want to call that Mother Earth or
sure,
Gaia, like I can feel it more closely when I'm at these locations.
sure. It's true. It's true. I think, getting back into nature, I mean, because we have become very technological. So I think the key is to be able to balance it and to take care of the earth, but also spend time in nature and enjoy technology as well, being able to balance it. Like I'm always on, I realize how much I'm on my phone, how much I'm on, doing stuff on the computer. Like I'm on the computer all day and
Sure.
all the time. And for me, I like the water too, and I like the mountains. I love, Sedona, going to Sedona, Arizona is where I've been able to that's where I reconnect, and just being in that energy there with the vortexes it's just amazing. But then I come back to Illinois, the Midwest. It's like,
It's
uh,
cold as I don't know what right now. You're just like inside, don't want to go outside. It gets dark at
yeah,
5 o'clock. Or like,
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
what it is. I just feel like going to bed when I get in the
Me
house
too.
at 5:30 because it's dark out and it's cold and it's like, oh,
I know. I
you
know.
know,
It really, everyone has their place, that is best for them to live. I mean, and can be seen in your chart, like we call it astrocartography. And so the place, where you have good luck with career, some places are better for you to live with your job, locations, longitude, latitude based on your chart, your birth
really,
chart.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Did you
yes.
tell me that last time? Because I feel like
No, no, we didn't talk about that last time.
I feel like
I
I'm
need
best
to,
suited for Hawaii.
it probably is. You probably got a major transit line going through Hawaii, but I really got interested in this because, we were military family, so we moved all the time. And there were some places I just could not get a job. And it was like my career I was stuck. I couldn't get jobs, because I had to give up my jobs and move around so much. And then other places, it was just like so easy. And I would always, easily get a job. I would get astrology would grow. I would have more people interested in my astrology business. And then other places, it's like it was dormant. Like I just want to leave here. And like the energy would feel so heavy in certain places I lived, and other places I felt more alive and happy. And so it really does affect you. And I tried to get a book published for a long time, and an astrologer friend of mine, he looked at my astrocartography chart and he's like, well, no wonder that publisher is been good luck for you, because I had some major line going through London, England, and for my career and stuff. And so that's where a lot of I have 3 books going to be published with that, and they're in England. So that things like that you can see, and where you would feel happy and safe, and where your relationships would be good. Sometimes where you feel comfortable isn't the best for your career, though. It's like you'll feel
Mhm.
comfortable there and happy, but you may not be able to get the job you want, right? Or something like that.
That's so amazing that you can see that. That's just so fascinating to
Yeah, it's called an astrocartography chart. And there's tons of sites that you can get one, or I could do one for you, but you just put your chart on top of the world map, and it shows you, all these lines. It's kind of like ley lines,
me.
it's energy, these lines that come through and match your energy, which is your birth chart, which is your soul mission. It's your soul. There, your birth chart, your soul. So how it relates to the whole world in different locations. It's really cool. Um, and I've
Wow,
seen
that
that
is.
work. I've seen that work. It's nice to do that. It's like relationships too, who you're compatible with, who you work well with, who you make, good friends with, you can see these patterns. And like when I meet people, it's like, when you just click with someone, or there's something astrologically that I always can find of why. And then if you kind of have some difficulty, I can see that too, in a chart, and try to help people. but
It's so
but yeah.
fascinating that you can see all of this information and data from our charts, right? Like it's just so fascinating to me because it always brings me back to that question of like free will and like
Yeah.
of autonomy. Like
Uh-huh.
if you can see
Uh-huh.
these in our charts, like what is it about? Like, is there free will?
There is, I think there is, but I do believe in destiny. So I think this is what I think. Just knowing how accurate astrology is, and it's scarily accurate. So to me, I know you can't change it. So there's things that are going to happen regardless, or you have these traits, these strengths, these inclinations, these this reactions, energies, right? Talents that you bring into this realm. But I think we have free will in the sense that we choose to come here. We choose when we're born for all the energies and the alignments and everything to be right for us and our soul and what we're wanting to learn. And I believe we come back with soul families, people we've had other lives with before we meet them again. Everyone we're meeting, we've known before. It's like we're here to learn. It's like a school. So in a way, we do have free will because we chose to come back. Now, I do believe that. I didn't used to believe that, because I used to say, I don't want to come back. Why would I want to come here? And oh, I want to be done. I want to get it right. And I want to, never have to come back. And I used to, study all that stuff and wanted to be perfect and do everything. I realized I'm human. We're human. Our soul is perfect, but we're in a material world, and no matter what we do, we have karma. So you're going to mess up. You're not going to do everything right all the time. So I learned that was too high of a standard, and I'm like, oh, I already messed up, I'm gonna have to come back again, right? So I believe that we choose to come back, and that we want to. And then people are like, well, why do you believe that? Well, I think we come back because of love, because of feelings for people that we care about. Because I think when we're in the soul form, we don't think with our conscious mind, like we think from the heart, the higher self, and like we want to come back and help.
Mhm.
That's what I think. And that's why we keep coming back.
Sure, I've heard it all though. Like, just I mean, I'm sure you have too. Like
Church.
that the Earth is a trap for souls, and
Yeah.
the reincarnation trap, and all of
Yeah.
that, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is like I'm not going to have that knowledge as Trey Downs in this human form because I'm not on the other side, or I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I can only go with what feels right to me. That doesn't feel right to me.
No, me
There
neither.
are some every near death experience that I've researched is in the normal curve of a
Yeah.
bell curve. Everyone is speaking about the love and the the goodness that's on the other side, and that they have a mission to come back. But then people are like, the one-offs that say, "Oh, well, I didn't have that experience. They're trying to push us back into Earth, and it's a trap." And they
Yeah.
tell you you have to come back because your mission, but it's really, they're trying to trick you into coming back. I'm like, I don't believe that at all, man.
Yeah.
I think that we are sentient beings, and that um, I am a conscious being, and I make conscious choices, right? Like I feel like if I'm over on the other side, um, and if it is a, if it is a trap, whatever. Like I'm gonna make the best of this. Yeah, like I'm a human. I'm gonna live this life the best that I can
Yeah.
possibly. But to your point of us being human, we're gonna make mistakes. There's gonna be things that happen
Sure.
that are outside of our control, just chaos
Mhm.
theory and things like
Sure.
that. We do the
Sure.
best we can, and we learn from that, and we
Yeah.
progress. And and I was just thinking in the back of my mind about what you're talking about with pads and kids watching pads and their attention. It's like, how do you come here and have a more um, profound experience? It's like through your attention. It's like, if you want to do certain things, focus on those things and
Mhm.
work your butt off to achieve those things.
Mhm.
Um, Everybody has different theories about manifestation. Like, oh, you have to say to certain things, you can't say certain things. You have to focus your energy and then let it go. I feel like if you have a pull in your heart uh, for those things and
Yeah.
have like a burning desire in your heart to achieve it, and you
Yeah.
focus all of your attention on it, like it will happen. Whether that's in relationships, like if you want to be a better husband or a better wife, like focus your attention on your relationship. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to not look at the shadow. Don't be afraid to look at your trauma. Like go in there like with the attention to do these things, and it will happen for you. If you want to create a business, same thing, put your attention on it. If you
Yeah.
want to go binge watch Netflix. You know what I mean? And watch an entire
I do
season of The
that.
Office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do that,
I
and
know,
you,
right?
you'll be successful. But
Yeah.
because we live in this dense reality, and this is just Trey Downs' opinion, is that it's very dense, and we have time, and you're
Yeah.
here. If everything manifested instantly, you'd get tired of this place. Like
Oh,
that's just my thought. It'd be like, oh well,
people
why
are.
am I even here, man? Like, okay, I want this. Boom, here it is.
Yeah.
I feel like if you really want something, it will come naturally in its own time.
Yeah.
And don't stop giving up on that. Like push
Exactly.
through it. Keep going, keep going, get outside of your comfort zone. Why did I
Exactly.
start running? Because it hurts and it sucks. And if I
It
can
does.
push through that, it just
Yeah.
expands my abilities and expands my uh, perseverance to do other things, and it carries over to my life. Like when I have 300 episodes of a podcast, like it's not easy. Like it's not easy
Sure.
at all to do those
A
things.
lot of
It's
work. Yeah.
a lot of work, as you know.
Yeah.
But it allows me, running that perseverance carries over into my podcasting to where I keep going because I know my desire, my personal record, my PR is
Yeah.
at this goal, and I want to obtain this goal. So I'm going to keep going and have my attention focused on that and be the, I guess, conscious creator that I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that our attitude, our how we see things is what helps us, thinking positive and also putting effort in. Like you have to work hard to get where you want in life. Not everybody gets things handed to them easily. And some of that I see in people's charts, where I think they chose to come in and have to learn certain things. Where I've met some people, they just have such luck at career success when they're young, and they just walk into these jobs and these promotions in just at an early age. Then I see other people that have worked their whole life to reach, retirement or what they want, but then, their mission is other things, so I can kind of see. That's why I like astrology, because I see that we chose it, but also it's in the soul record. So these are all everything happening in our life is timing, and all astrology is looking at timing, looking at all this, but it's also looking at our free will. Like, are we moving forward, doing things we want? So, like, a quote that a teacher told me once was, God helps those who help themselves. So it's like if people pray and they ask for signs and they do all of this and they don't get it or they don't see it, it doesn't mean that, sometimes I think the universe, God, source, whatever, they need us to take steps and effort into that path. And then we start seeing things manifest, right? But it's like if you just, pray and nothing happens and you lose faith and you give up, well, God didn't answer my prayers. That's not what it's about. So that quote really helped me. Like, God helps those who help themselves. Like, yeah, like I got to put effort into this. Like I can't just expect it just to, you know, manifest, right? Yeah, it's like,
Well, I mean, people, a lot of like I think Abraham Hicks is like, oh, you don't have to put effort into it, but I don't. I mean, maybe some people don't. Maybe I don't know the answer. I know that Trey Downs has to put effort into it because
yeah,
that's my journey here. Is
yeah,
I'm a blue collar guy. I'm gonna put effort into it.
yeah,
I've been taught to work hard,
yeah.
and there have been instances in my life where I didn't put the effort in, and
Mhm.
I see the direct result of that. It's not the finished product that I want.
Sure.
I call effort will. If I can put my willpower behind something, then the better the result will be. Thy will be done. I
Yeah.
feel I would just, I don't want to be I don't want to be expect like I don't want to expect things to happen just because, right? Like I want to know that I worked hard for that, so that way I can cherish it that much more. Like
Yeah.
I expect, and maybe it's going back to belief systems, maybe that's why the journey has been so hard, right? Because I believe it to be. Maybe it is, but there's also some pride in that I put a lot of effort into developing and creating something, and
Yeah.
then like me appreciating that at the end of the road and saying, look what I've created, and being able to look back on that and just have this sense of fulfillment and purpose. And my dog's going crazy right now because somebody's pulling up to the house.
That's all right. Can't hear it.
But I just think, there's a big debate about effort and intention. And I think they're both kind of the same thing.
Sure. We got about 3 minutes left. It goes quick. That's it.
I know.
But I was, just everything you're saying and just, getting to know you a little better. You definitely, you have that Aries moon, which I have as well. And Aries moons, like, they're all about like challenge, challenging themselves, like your comment about running. Yeah. And it's like they come alive when there's competition. They come alive when someone tells them they can't do something. They're
Oh
like,
my
I'll
God.
show you.
Don't tell me
Yes,
that because then I'll do it. It's like
I
it's
know. Like, I'm
bait.
gonna prove you wrong.
What?
What? You don't think
What
that's
did you just
Aries.
say? I
Yeah.
can't do something? Hold my beer.
I know, right? And just hold on a minute. Yeah. So Aries, they are motivated and they are self inner motivated. With an Aries moon, you push yourself from within. And then you got that Taurus, you got a lot of Taurus energy, which is, planning and patience and working hard and, in the daily practical life. And all those things. And then, I think, and then I can see in your chart why you like water because you have a lot of planets, a stellium there in the fourth house of Cancer, which is the house, the moon rules Cancer, the moon rules, it's a water house. So water is going to heal you, being near water, being near the ocean, all of that I can see in your chart as well. But just basic stuff, getting to know you a little bit. But yeah, don't tell an Aries moon they can't do something. And we're the most resilient moon sign, uh, in my opinion, because we'll go through these challenges, but we don't give up. We don't give up. So we got 1 minute left. Tell everybody how they can find your podcast and find you.
Sure. Head over to YouTube, search Your Superior Self, or you can go to my website, traydowns.com. Instagram, I post some things. It's a little bit more, I like to be able to save those photos and archive. So when, I'm, looking back on photos from the kids, you can follow me there at, TDowns80. But other than that, everything's on YouTube essentially.
YouTube. Yes, follow his channel, subscribe. You will not regret it. There's a ton of great interviews and people and authors and different topics, UFO, spirituality, all these things, near-death experiences. So Trey, thank you so much for coming on. And I really enjoyed talking to you and connecting with you again.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Carmen. I think every time I learn something new, And we're definitely going to have to reconnect for a live on my show and then talk more about the positional energies in astrology and how it works for us.
Yes, would love to. Well, you have a happy holiday, and to all the listeners, everyone watching in the chat, thanks for joining us. And happy holidays, happy new year. We'll see you in 2024.